Hello, class. I have some students in here with me now for this last session to go through the syllabus, and many of you were not able to get into one of the sessions, so please take the time to go through and watch this recording so you'll know exactly what is expected of you for the assignments. That is the main reason why I'm doing this. Of course, you can read through the syllabus, but there is some explanation for some of the assignments, what I'm expecting, how to complete them, and how to submit them. That is going to be important. So I hope that you will watch the video. All of the recorded lectures will be the same way that we're doing now. I'll introduce whatever we're going to talk about. You'll see my face on the screen. I'll give you a greeting. And talk about whatever it is we're going to go through that day, or any announcements right at the beginning, and then I'll turn my camera off and go right into the explanation of my PowerPoint slides. So you'll always be able to access those on the virtual classroom. So I'm going to turn me off, and I'm going to get right into talking about the syllabus. Okay, so this is 152, which is the first part of the two-part series of anatomy and physiology. If you weren't in any of my sessions, I said that I do 152 and 153, as well as 240, 241 on a regular basis. And so just, I cover all of those bases. My office hours are spread out through the week. When I'm teaching face-to-face or synchronously, typically when I teach online, I still have virtual class on 2 days of the week like you would normally have. But because I'm teaching online asynchronous, I spread my office hours out. When I teach in person or synchronously, I center the office hours around those courses or those class meeting times, but we don't have any designated class meeting times. So hopefully you'll be able to get in during one of these days of the week. My office hours are on Zoom, not the virtual classroom. And the reason why they're on Zoom, because Zoom is accessible to all of my students, not just one class, and there is a waiting room. So if I'm in with one student, they may be talking about something that they don't want everybody else privy to, you're in the waiting room, and then I'll bring you in. So if you ever come to the office hours and you're in the waiting room, that means I'm talking to another student. Don't leave. I'll get you back in. So those are on Zoom Monday through Friday. If those times do not work, email me so we can arrange another time. While we're having these asynchronous classes, I want to make sure that I'm available when you have questions, you need explanations, you need some understanding. Don't hesitate with that for this class or any other class. That is why we are here. Okay. Otherwise, we could just throw you a book and say, here, learn that. That's really not how that works. We need some interaction. So this is going to be a little bit of an adjustment for me because I'm used to having that interaction with my students even when I teach online. So don't hesitate about reaching out. I have my office number down here, both the room number and the phone number. I really won't be in my office much of the semester. I do go on campus one day for one class, but I doubt that I'll be in my office much. So you want to make sure that you email me when you need to contact me. Again, if my office hours don't work, just email me and we can arrange another time to get together. I don't want you to miss out on any help that you may need. So you do need the textbook. If you have an older textbook, you can use that. If it's a Fundamentals of Anatomy and Physiology, it doesn't have to be this author. You can have a textbook from 20 years ago. Anatomy and Physiology pretty much doesn't change. And I don't use the textbook to generate test questions like the little end of the chapter or the test bank for a particular textbook. And even though you can access the e-text online, I don't use that online platform for little exercises or assignments on there. So it doesn't matter if you have the e-text. It doesn't matter if you have a hard copy textbook. It doesn't matter if you have an old textbook. It doesn't matter if it's a different author. It just needs to be one of those thicker ones. If it's the skinny textbook like Essentials, it doesn't have the detail of information that you need for this course. Okay. I have posted in e-learning on the content page a tab that tells you how to access the ebook if you're having any problems with that. And I'll share my screen later and we'll look at the things posted on e-learning. You need the coloring book. The coloring book is in the bookstore. That's the only place that you can get that. My name and Miss Pierce's name are on that book. We work with the publisher to pull out pictures that we specifically wanted for our classes. So for the most part, both of us use all the pictures. There are some that she uses that I don't, and vice versa. But you need to get that from the bookstore. So if you don't have it already, make sure you get that. The first, I don't know if it's two. The first coloring assignment is already uploaded. So you need to get that. I know it's in the bookstore available for you. But the first coloring assignment, if you don't have it, is uploaded because your first homework assignment is due on Monday. So you definitely need that first coloring assignment this weekend. Okay. Colored pencils. Somebody asked me earlier, can you use something else to color with? Yes, you can. I just don't like markers because they bleed through. But if it doesn't bleed through, you can use it. You can use crayons or whatever. Colored pencils just tend to be kind of neat. Of course, everybody needs to have computer access to be on e-learning, especially for your exams. Different platforms work better with e-learning than some of the other ones. So you just want to make sure whatever you're using is going to be conducive for you to be successful in the class and get your assignments turned in and be able to take your exams online. At any time you need to stop me, ask me questions. If I'm going too fast, just stop me. Okay? For the people who are here with me. So during the height of COVID, Delta had a number of requirements for getting on campus. They had the online check-in system, and then you could only come in one or two doors on campus, and you had to wear a mask and that kind of stuff. And at this point, they have lifted a lot of those restrictions. You don't have to wear a mask. You can wear a mask if you want to going on campus. You're not relegated to checking in prior nor one door or two doors. But I will point out this, and I need to use my writing instrument here because my students told me that the cursor doesn't show in the recording. It only shows when you're in class with me. So if you test positive for COVID, you need to contact the Disability Service Office, whether you have online classes or in-person classes. The reason why is they will contact your instructors and let them know so that if you actually become ill and you can't get your assignments done or can't go to class, there's record of it as to why. And then the instructors will work with you to make sure you get all of your assignments and stuff turned in and completed. If you don't, we don't know what's going on. So just know that that's in the syllabus if you test positive for COVID. And even if you don't get sick, just so that it's on record in case something, flips and you need that there. Hopefully nobody will get it, nobody will get sick, and we won't have to worry about it. But just in case, you need to do that. Okay. I talked already about contacting me during the office hours when you need help. Don't hesitate with that. Again, if the office hours that I have listed don't work for you, you have a conflict, just email me so that we can arrange a time to meet so you can get help. If you need clarity on something that was in the lecture, if you want to talk about study techniques or whatever, don't hesitate coming to see me. I tell my students about when I first went to college, I had a chemistry teacher, Dr. Cho. I'm still in contact with Dr. Cho even after all these years. So I wasn't getting it. Her class was hard. I was like, oh, I need to go see the teacher. And so I went to her office, and the first time I went, she thought that I had an attitude, but really I was trying to prevent myself from crying because I'm in the teacher's office to get help. After I got over that initial visit, I was always in her office to get help so I could pass, right? So don't wait. Don't wait until we're way down into the middle of the semester. You know, a lot of times students will go through the first exam. Okay, well, I'll just shift some things, and then we're at the second exam, third exam, and now you're coming. Don't wait. Don't wait. As soon as you perceive that you need help, seek out help. Okay. Um, that's for any class, not just me, not just my class, but any class. That's what instructors are there for. So don't hesitate about getting help. Okay. I check my email regularly. So don't hesitate about emailing me and I will respond back. Now, I do have to say this, and I did not say this to any of my other sections. If you are emailing me in the middle of the night, I'm probably already in the bed. Okay. For the most part, when I'm teaching, when I've been out this summer, I was going to bed really late. But when I'm teaching, I'm pretty much in the bed pretty early. But I will, as soon as, I'm on the computer the next morning, answer your questions and that kind of thing. So some of you may have contacted me late at night and like, oh, she responded right away. That's not the norm, okay? But I will respond as soon as I get on that next morning. Okay, so I got a couple things here listed as student success, keys to student success and student responsibilities. There's also a document on e-learning, and I'll show you the tab for that, for how to be successful in my class. And that is specifically for my classes. I know how I set my classes up. I know what you're going to need to do to really be successful. So I want you to take some time to look at that. These are some very general things. You need a Delta email address. Of course, all of you had that. You've been looking at your Delta email address. I know some people have other email like Gmail and stuff like that. I would suggest that you not use that contacting your professors because it might go into spam and we don't get it. Now, if you have another email address that you want me to use in addition to this one, you can put it on that little first day survey that I have. I ask students questions about just general questions. So, about your major and that kind of stuff. Is there anything hindering you that might hinder your success in the class? It's just so I'll know who my students are and where they are at this point so I can best help them. If you got another email address that you want me to have in case, you can put that on there as well. The next bullet, students are expected to read prior to lecture or we don't actually have physical lab, but those materials before we have virtual class or before you look at post the lectures. Now, what I know is that is a good idea for any class, whether it's this class, whether it's an English class, history class. Reading in advance of the class is always good. And even though I'm telling you that it's a good practice to do, I know that you won't do it just because I say it's a good idea. So I have created pre-assignments that require that advanced reading. And that's going to be important because I have structured the class so we have repetition. You keep seeing the stuff over and over before you get a test. And that way, hopefully, you'll have an opportunity for that information to click. And so we're going to get into talking about those pre-assignments, how I want them done and how to submit them. That's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have this session with you prior. Okay. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Your notes, right? You're going to want to read your notes, and your notes are going to be the key for studying for the exams. Not reading the chapter over and over, not some little other outside activities. Your notes are going to be the key. Now, I mentioned a course pack here. You don't have a physical course pack. I'm going to post notes on the content page. And essentially, after you get all the notes, you will have essentially a course pack. But you're going to look at those notes. You might possibly print them out and watch your recorded lectures at the same time. And anything that I mention in the recorded lecture that may not be in the notes or anything that you need to fill in the notes, you're going to do that as you're watching the lecture. Those notes are going to be the key for the test. You're going to study my notes for the test. I make my test from my notes. Okay, so the pre-assignment is homework before. You will have quizzes, but when you get ready to study for the test, the notes are going to be the main thing that you're going to focus on. Okay, so I will put some notes out there on e-learning, and then there will be a recorded lecture, probably 2 for each section: an anatomy lecture and then physiology lecture. And you want to fill in those notes, particularly the physiology part. And I'll show you where we'll have pictures of models also posted to study for the anatomy portion of the exams. But remember that the notes are going to be key for the exams. And I will be putting up study guides for the exams as well. So there will also be study guides. I don't know if I've posted any of them yet. They may be already posted. I'll look and see when we go to our, I'll share the screen and go to the site on e-learning. We will have some review sessions. Now, I know that everybody won't get under the umbrella of the times for those review sessions. And so I will post some kind of simulated review sessions. But if at all possible, you want to come to the real review sessions. And the reason why these are so important, I do them when I teach face-to-face. I do them when I teach synchronous. They are right here in the virtual classroom. I have my students come in here on the screen, put answers to questions in the classroom, do it on the whiteboard. I put questions on here. I put images on here, the pictures of the models, diagrams, and I have students come in here and practice. That is super, super important, because you can read and read and study and study and read and study and read and study and feel like you're ready for the test. Then you go into the test and you think, man, I thought I was ready. All that stuff flew out of my head. Well, what happens is when you're reading, you can recognize stuff, but you aren't generating any answers. You aren't practicing answering questions. And so the review gives you the opportunity to actually practice answering questions. And that way you know what you know, and you know what you need to spend more time studying. Otherwise, you just keep reading and reading and reading. One of the things that I did with studying is I had somebody quiz me. I had somebody who would take my notes, go through the notes. It didn't even have to be somebody in my class. Take my notes, as long as they can read the notes and halfway pronounce the terms, and ask me questions. And so even though I wasn't writing the answers down, I was saying them out loud. I still had to generate answers. That is the key. So with the study guides, a lot of times students will just go and look up the answers. That's not what you want to do. That's not the most effective way to use the study guide, because you already got the answers in the notes. What you want to do is study like you're ready for the test. Take that study guide and some blank paper and see, can you answer those questions on the study guide? Then check your answers against the notes. Were you able to come up with an answer? If you couldn't answer the question, you know you need to study that stuff, right? If you answer the question partially, you know you need to spend more time. If you answer the question but it wasn't right, you know you need to spend more time. If you answer the question, you got that one down pat, you know you don't need to spend a lot more time going through that part. You got it. So the practice is going to be key. And for 152, this is your first time jumping into the whole anatomy and physiology thing. And this is going to be a whole new language and stuff. That's why I assign the pre-assignments, because you don't want the first time you're hearing some of these terms to be when I talk about it. You at least want to see it first. That's why I assign it that way. So it's not like a foreign language. Okay. So if you can, get to the reviews. If you use the study guide, use it as a practice test as the most effective way to use it. Practice generating answers. That's going to be the key. Now, I have set the course up so that we kind of are on a schedule. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are primarily when things are due. Now, that's not every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I want you to keep in mind, for 152, I need to make sure I check on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to make sure if I have something due or not, right? So pre-assignments are due on Mondays, and this coming Monday, you'll have your first pre-assignment due before midnight. Quizzes are on Wednesdays before midnight. Exams are on Fridays before midnight. I don't take late assignments. So there's always a couple day window to get these things done. So, if you're going out of town on a Friday, don't email me and say, well, I can't take the test today because I'm getting ready to go out of town. It was already open. Take it on Thursday. Okay. So remember, there's always a window of a couple days to get everything in. So don't wait until the very last minute, especially if you know you got other stuff going on. In that same respect, don't wait till 11:57 to start uploading your homework. I had a student today who was trying to get into one of the sessions, and their computer just decided to update. And that can take 5 or 6 minutes. Then you're out of the window of time. So get it in earlier. I mean, you have up until this time, but anything can happen. I've had so many students say, oh, it was uploading too slow and I missed it and I didn't get it in on time. Let's avoid that, right? Start a little bit earlier. Same thing with the quizzes and the tests. The quizzes are typically 30 minutes. They probably won't even take you 15 minutes to do, but you want to make sure you have that full allotted amount of time. The exams are timed. I think they're either an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes. You want to make sure you start so you have the full amount of time. Even if you don't use the full amount of time, you don't know if you're going to need to or not. So you want to start in advance. So don't get on at 11 to take the test, and then you may need more than 59 minutes to take it, but it'll shut off, and then you don't get your test completed. So make sure you time things out so that you have ample time to complete the tests and quizzes and ample time to get your things turned in. Okay, again, if you have any scheduling issues, Friday you can't do it beforehand, or Friday evening you're leaving, do it Friday morning, right? Figure that out. I don't know your schedule. You got all kinds of things going on, so you have to keep that in mind. So for 152, keep in mind Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Always check, do I have something due this Monday, Wednesday, or Friday? Okay. Any questions about that? Now, if you have something catastrophic happen, right? I had a student earlier today was talking about they had a fire in their home not long ago. Well, that's catastrophic. If you have a fire in your house, the last thing you're worried about is trying to figure out what assignment is due. Your whole living situation is, up in arms. You need to figure that out. Contact me and let me know. And then, okay, I get it. We'll work on, how you're going to get stuff done when you've settled down and you've gotten yourself together and your living arrangements together. I mean, things happen. Okay. But just because, I just got off work at 8 and I slept through it. Well, then you should have taken it the day before or whatever. So you want to, because you know what, when you get to clinicals, that's how it's going to be. You're going to have a tight schedule and you're going to have to be there. Sometimes I know the nursing students might have to get to the hospital and be there at 6 o'clock in the morning for clinicals and stuff like that. And they're not interested in you saying, oh, something happened, right? Because you're going to be getting there to relieve that next person. They can't leave until you get there. I worked a job like that. Ooh, and when the person is not there, I am irritated with them because then I got to wait until they come. Right. So anyway, you want to be timely with that. But if something serious happens, some emergency, you can contact me. So I don't want you to think that you can't, but for the most part, you want to stick to the schedule. Participation. So you all did that. The people who are on here with me tonight have introduced themselves, and we went around and did that. So that's part of participation. You want to make a connection with somebody else in the class. Another thing is just you logging in, getting all your materials, submitting your assignments on time, coming to reviews, coming to office hours. All of those things count as participation and attendance. I have to take attendance. Delta requires me to do that. Now, I have discussions here, but I don't do a lot of discussion boards. I know in a lot of online classes, they have a lot of discussion boards. So you have to post 2 or 3 times a week, and then you got to comment on 15 different people's stuff. I don't do that. That might work for some people, and a lot of times instructors teach the way they taught or teach the way they learn, right? And I've had classes with discussion boards, and they didn't work for me. And for a science class, I don't see them being so useful. So I'm not interested in you posting and watching other people's stuff or reading other people's stuff and commenting on it, except for one time, and that's for the presentation. And I'll talk about that later. Okay, but yeah. So as long as you're logging in and doing the things you need to do, you'll be present and in full participation. I say that you need to be acquainted with other classmates. Again, that was the point of us getting together here so that you can be familiar with some of your other classmates. When we have reviews, hopefully you will be able to connect with some other classmates. It's always good to have another touch point outside of the class when you can't reach me. At the back of the syllabus, there's a grading sheet. Some people like to have something tangible in their hand. So every time something is recorded on the grade book on e-learning, you can just record it on that sheet and keep track of it. But you don't have to. The grades are always updated on e-learning. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so this is how the class is structured. We'll have 6 exams, regular exams, they're 100 points each, 6 quizzes, 10 points each, a final exam that is comprehensive, 200 points, the case study, the pre-assignments, that's the homework, there's 7 of them, 10 points each, and then we'll have 3 little lab exercises. So will students see this? 6 exams, that seems like a lot of exams. Well, it is kind of a lot of exams, but if you've ever had a class where you just had a midterm and a final, you already know if you mess up on one of those, sorry, Charlie, right? So you don't want that. So I give a lot of exams because if you don't do so great on one, it's not the end of the world. You have 5 other exams to help build your grade, right? I also don't like having too few exams because then that means I got to put a whole lot more material on each exam. And you don't want to have to study, 4 or 5 systems for an exam. So your exam, except for the first one, your exams will have like 2 systems on each exam, like bones and muscle, skin and tissue, nervous and special senses, like that. So I keep that paired up with something that's compatible, and so I limit the amount of information because you can easily become overwhelmed, and that's not what I want. Okay. The quizzes are pretty straightforward. They're really pre-assignment quizzes. It's really not based on a whole lot of information from the lecture or any of that. It's really based on the pre-assignments. The more you put into the pre-assignments, the more they benefit you. Okay. The final is comprehensive. For my 152, 153, and 241 classes, I always have a comprehensive final. And I have that because you need to remember this information. For 152, you need to remember it for 153. 153 and 152, you need to remember it for your program. 241, they need to remember it for pharmacy school, university, PA school, whatever they're doing. It's foundational. A lot of times students will say, I just need this class to validate. Your anatomy and physiology is foundational for any of those allied health programs. So you need them for more than just validation. They're foundational. And when you get in your program, the instructors won't have time to go back through those things. So I need to know that you've managed to hold on to enough of that information that you learned throughout the semester. And don't let it fly out of your head after every exam. And I'm going to tell you how you can prepare for the final in a minute when we get to looking at what's on the e-learning site. And the grading scale should look familiar. So what will be the setup for the exams? The exams will have true and false questions, multiple choice questions, fill in the blank possibly, identification. Identification is the practical part, meaning you're identifying structures on diagrams or the pictures of the models. We'll have matching. You might have short answer or essay questions. You'll have listing or ordering. So let me explain what that is. So some of the things we'll talk about, physiological processes will have a sequence of events that happen. So we'll talk about muscle contraction, for example, or how an impulse is passed down a nerve. And there's a series of steps of events that happen. You need to understand how that happens and the sequence of things that happen. So that's what we're talking about for listing and ordering. Each of my exams will have both the written part and the identification part together. So each exam is going to have 70% written questions and 30% identification questions. And so you'll have in the discussion board, it's just for posting pictures, not really for discussion. You'll see that I'll have models there, pictures and models for you to study from. So when we're going through it in lecture, you'll have pictures of models there, diagrams there, and those are the things that you will use to prepare for that part, as well as your coloring for the practical part. The exams are online. What happens is the exams auto grade. If there's any essay or short answer, I'll go in and grade those afterwards. If not, it'll auto grade. And then what I do is once everybody is done, I go back and I check through them to make sure nothing was marked wrong that shouldn't have been. I don't really take off for spelling. If it's a minor spelling error, if you have an A instead of an E, I know tests are high stress, and I'm personally not a good speller, so I have to check everything when I spell it. And you don't have the opportunity to do that in an exam. That being said, if you write something that's totally not a word or it's unrecognizable, then it's wrong. But if it's off a letter or something, I don't take off for that. I go back and I make sure that I give you credit for that. So you actually may end up with a point or two more than you had on the auto grade. Now, although I'm saying I don't take off for spelling, I need for you to know that in allied health programs, nursing programs, any of those programs, respiratory therapy, any of that stuff, spelling is super, super important. If you're talking about medications, that A instead of an E can be somebody's life. Okay, so I don't want you to think the spelling is not important. So when you are working and you are writing up, charts or whatever it is, or you're checking and passing meds, yeah, check that spelling. Stop what you're doing and go make sure this is the right thing if you have any question about the spelling. It is super important. Okay, but I don't take off for minor spelling errors on the test. I already told you that the tests are timed. You can't flip back and forth through the test because this is not like a take-home test, so you won't have time to go through and hunt down answers. This is like if you were taking the test in the classroom, right? You got to sit there and go through the test, and you got a window of time to do that. So you want to study and prepare and take the test the same way. I mentioned before, I expect all of my students to have integrity. I don't do the respond this browser lockdown and have you turn on webcams. Students might have a lot of different types of technology and issues with technology, and I don't want to hinder that, but I do expect my students to have integrity. I expect for you not to cheat. If you get in that allied health program and you cheat, they're going to put you out of the program. So don't do that to yourself. When you're dealing with a patient in your career, you can't cheat. When that patient is sitting in front of you, you got to know what you're doing. You can't cheat. So I expect my students to have integrity. Okay? And there have been instances where I can tell that somebody was cheating, you will get a warning, and then there will be some repercussions for that if I have to come back and say it again. Just don't do it. It just doesn't benefit you. Okay? Now, the final is comprehensive. The studying for the final is based on the exams that you took. Well, you take these online, so you don't have anything tangible in your hand. At the end of the test, you'll see what you got wrong, but you don't have anything tangible in your hand to study for the final. So after each regularly scheduled exam, I post in e-learning a sample exam. So after exam 1, I post a sample exam 1. After exam 2, the same thing. So you will have a number of exams here, practice exams for you to study and prepare for the final. Okay? You don't want to wait until the last week just before the final to start looking at those. You want to start looking at those right away so you can ask questions throughout the semester. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to go to the e-learning site. And we're going to look at some things. So I have it set as this is how it would look if you are looking at it as a student. You've seen this before. It gives you some information. You always want to look at the news area because as things change, I'm going to post something tonight for those people who weren't here to remind them to look at this and remind you about the assignments that are coming due. So you see there's a little tick over here on the right about when things are going to be due and so on. Now, what I want you to do is go to that content page, and the content page is kind of the home page, really, about what's going to be due, right? So we have the first day survey. That's where I ask you some questions about yourself and your major, and is there anything hindering you? There's a document here for access in a textbook. I want to click on that. Some of you maybe just need to click on this. This is a document that gives you a step-by-step of how to get in that book if you need to do that. Then, of course, there's a syllabus. Some people might want to print that out. I'm just going to click on this. This is the same exact thing that I'm going over in this PowerPoint. But the part of it that you might want to have printed out is the schedule here of what's going to be due and when. So you want to keep track of that syllabus. That's always there. This is all on the content page on this left side. And then some additional first day of class documents. You want to look at those. There's a study lab on campus in C112. There's some stuff in the library. There's other kinds of things there that will be helpful. So you want to look at that. How to be successful in class. Those are the 10 bullet points that I talk about for success, particularly in my class, how I have it structured. Pre-assignments. We're going to come back to that in a second. Class notes. There are no notes here yet, but this is where I will post your notes because you don't have a course pack, right? So I'm going to post notes here, and then the recorded lectures will be supplemental to that, or these are actually supplemental to the recorded lecture, and you want to make sure that if there's any blank spaces, there may be spaces in the notes where you need to fill in things as you watch the lecture. Do that. And then study guides. So apparently I do have the study guides already here for your exams as they come up. Again, the study guides here, the best way to use them is as a practice test. It looks similar to the pre-assignments. You got maybe some definitions, you got some questions. You want to go in and study like you're ready for the test. Pull this out with some blank paper and practice answering questions. That's the best way to use those. Those are already all uploaded. Then here, final study guide, sample exams. There's nothing in here yet. I'll start posting things in there after each exam that you complete. So after the first exam, I'll put sample exam 1 and so on and so on. And you want to start working through those, looking through those, jot down any questions you have. Anything that you need explanation on, you can ask me about those all through the semester. Just don't wait until the very end to start going through those. That's your study guide in preparation for the final. And then case studies and lab exercises, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Any questions about anything at this point? Any questions? Okay. So the final is 20% 200 points. It can shift your grade in either direction. So you want to make sure you are planning for that. So any free time you have, start looking at those sample tests and working through them in preparation. Okay, this is the big one, the pre-assignments. And I'm not going to read through that. You can, I'm going to explain it. The pre-assignments have 3 parts to them. You have the questions, you have the coloring, and you have the identification list. So there are 3 parts that you need to complete: written questions, the coloring pages, and the list. All 3 of those parts are going to be submitted in one document. So I'm going to talk about how to do that and how to put that in one document. So this part is key. So let me share my screen again. I'll go back to where we were. So let's go back to my content page, and I go to pre-assignments. Okay, so the first pre-assignment is up here. And I've given some coloring pages, so if you haven't gotten your coloring book yet, because our first pre-assignment is due Monday before midnight, right? So the first coloring pages are here. I don't normally put the coloring pages up here. I'm just doing that because this is the first week. It's due really soon, and I know some people may not have gotten it. They ordered it online and haven't gotten the book yet, the coloring book. Okay, so what do I need for the pre-assignment? So this is generally what they look like. We start with some definitions. This is probably in 2 columns. So you download this. This is a Word document. You download it. I would just highlight this first part. When you download it, it's highlighting everything. And make it 1 column so it's easier to type the answers in. You can type the answers in here, but it's easier if you make it 1 column. Again, use your textbook. There may be, on occasion, a term that you can't find in the textbook, and that's fine if you look online for the answer, but you typically want to use your textbook. The reason why is Google just kind of, whatever it generates, it pops that up, and that doesn't mean it's applicable to what you're studying. There's a term that we talk about in 150, well, it could be in 152 or 153, ptosis. I typically assign that term in 153 in the urinary chapter. If I Google ptosis, it's going to say droopy eyelid. And inevitably, I have half of the students or more say droopy eyelid. Well, we're in the urinary system. We ain't talking about eyelids. So that's not what I want. So sometimes there are terms that can be used in more than one system. You always want to make sure that it's a system that we're studying at that time. So it's the way to ensure that is to use your textbook. Okay. Again, there may be an occasion where it's not in the textbook. You look up online, that's okay. But as a general rule, the idea of the pre-assignments is to get you to read the chapter. Okay, so you're going to answer all these questions. Just download this Word document, type right in the document, answer the questions right in the document. This doesn't say it on this particular thing, but it came up in my 153 class. If you have a question that says draw something, I actually want you to draw it on separate paper, and then you can take a picture of it and paste it in here. I don't want you to go find the image of it somewhere else and just paste it in here. The actual physical drawing of it is actually to help you learn that particular thing. Okay, so you type all your answers in here. Then the coloring book pages. Our coloring book pages are odd. I could have put 3-13. So if I put 3-13, that meant all the pages between 3 and 13, right? You're going to color and label everything. Some of the pages will have directions. Some of the pages won't have directions. It'll just have a picture on there. So if it's just a picture, you're going to color everything and you're going to label. Well, how do I know what to label? You're going to label the stuff that's on this list. If it's not on this list, it's not going to be important for you to label it. Now, How do I get that into my assignment? You will take pictures with your phone of your pages and act like you're texting, and in the box where you would put the number to text, you put your email address. So you send these things to yourself, you text them to your email address. And then you open up the email, you can save the pictures or you can just copy them and paste them into the document. No more than 4 per page. You don't have to have them each on an individual page, but I also don't want 8 or 10 of them on the page because they'll be too small for me to see. So about 4 per page. So you take the picture with your phone, then on your phone, like you are going to text, you put in your email address and you send it to your email address. Then you can open them up, copy them, and paste. Or if you have a scanner, you can scan the pictures and then copy them and paste them into the document. You can paste them here, or you can paste them at the end. That doesn't matter. Then you have a list. Now, what do I want you to do with this list? This one doesn't have structures really. This is regional terms, directional terms, landmark areas. I want you to find these things on the pictures in your textbook. And then I want you to tell me what these things look like. What do they look like to you? Not the description that's written in the textbook, right? So for nasal, that's around the nose area on page 68. Orbital, around the eye area on page 68 in the textbook. I'm making that up. I don't know what page it's on, okay? But that's what it looks like to me, right? Cephalic, meaning related to the head or pertaining to the head on page 70, right? Cervical, neck area, page 70. This is going to help you study. I want you to tell me what it looks like to you. So when you have this list and you have your textbook and you have the pictures and you're trying to study the pictures of the models, you can say, okay, the nasal area around the nose, I see that on page 68. Let me see if I can find it on the model picture on the discussion board. Bam, I got it. Let's go to the next thing. For my 153 class, the example I gave was the aorta. The aorta is one of the largest, well, the largest artery in the body. My mother had an aortic aneurysm. I had to explain to her what the aorta looks like. So I told her it's like a candy cane. It has the short part, then it has the curved part, then it has the long part. So in the description, I would just say it's a big red candy cane going down the middle of the body. And it's on page, 768. My own personal description. When you get to bones, there's going to be an opening in the skull and the spinal cord passes through that opening. It's called the foramen magnum. How would you describe that? A hole in the bottom of the skull. Page 432, whatever. You want your own description, something that's going to help you find it when you're studying. You can use the definitions or the explanations in the book, but they're not probably going to be helpful because we don't use that language every day. We don't say that something is superior lateral to the X, Y, and Z or inferior to and if I'm comparing it to other structures, I got to know where the other structures are. What I want you to do is just tell me what it looks like to you. If it looks like a flat pancake structure, at the back of the eye, that's what you say. Whatever it looks like to you that's going to help you find it. It looks like one of these bones. It looks like a butterfly. Fine. It looks like a butterfly. What page in the textbook can I find it? Now, a lot of these things are on multiple pages of the textbook. Don't get stuck on one picture. I tell my students that for 153, there's a person in the picture and they show all the arteries, and another one they show all the veins. Yeah, but those aren't necessarily the best pictures to see the up close arteries and veins that you need to see. So flip through the book, find the best picture that's going to help you see these things and put that page number so that when you're studying, you can flip to that page number and you can just go through that because you already know what you're looking to see. So 3 things on that pre-assignment. The questions. So you're going to answer all those questions, type right in the document. the coloring pages, color and label everything. I might say 13 top. That means I only want you to do the top picture. You don't have to do the one on the bottom. Or if I just say the bottom, just do the one on the bottom. Okay? So it'll say that next to that if that's what I want. Do all of those pages, color and label. What to label if there are no arrows? If it's on your list and it's something you need to know, that's what you label. You're going to use your textbook to help you with that labeling, right? And then the list. What do these things look like? How would you describe it in your own words? And give me a page number from your textbook where you can find it. Not the coloring book, the textbook, where you can find it. And so when you do these lists, make sure you go through the whole list there. Okay? So you got 3 things saved in one document. It doesn't matter if the coloring is put here or at the end. Sometimes students like to put it at the end after you get through typing everything. That's perfectly fine. Save it as a Word document or a PDF. Those are the 2 that I need that I can easily access. Then I'm going to go to, once that's done, the Dropbox under activities, the assignment Dropbox. I see pre-assignment 1 here. I go in and I add that file here. On the pre-assignment, notice I got a reminder. You can only submit 1 document for this assignment. So make sure you got the identification list, you got your coloring pages, and you got your questions answered, right? All on 1 document, and submit that 1 document here. The reason why you can't submit multiple files here is because it would take me forever to grade it. I have to click in and out and in and out and in and out every time for each document. And if you got 10 coloring pages, then I got to click in and out every time I got 4 classes this semester. So that's a ton of students. It would take me forever. Okay. So that's what I need you to do there. While I am on here, let me go and show you the pictures I'm talking about. So I'll go into activities. I go to the discussion board. So if you haven't, the first one here is the introduction. I started it. You can put a picture of yourself on there. This is so you can know who you're in the class with, get to know each other as much as we can in this virtual environment. So here you see that, let's see what I got on here. So we got some pictures on here, right? This is initial, right? And I probably might add a few things to that. I'm not sure about that one. So let's go back. I don't want to subscribe. I want to go back. I don't know how to. Let me just go back this way. Typically, the discussion board. You see the other ones here. Some pictures. I just dropped right down into the pictures. So you'll have a bunch of these for each section, right? And this is where you're going to study from. A lot of students like to print these out. You can do that. You don't have to. If you want to put sticky notes on your screen and put numbers and letters around there on the sticky notes, and then come back and practice on paper, right? But you'll see all of these images on the discussion board. So then, for example, let me see where I was talking about before. Okay, so here we are at the skull, right? Hole at the bottom of the skull, right? Hole at the bottom of the skull. So then when you look at your list, and that's what you said, you see it on page 768, and then you look at this picture on the discussion board as you were studying, bam, I got it. I know what the foramen magnum is. Okay? Are we together? Any questions about that? Okay, somebody had a question in the chat. Let me see. What are the first assignments that are due Monday? That's the one I just showed you, pre-assignment 1. Pre-assignment 1 that I just went through is the one that's due Monday. Let me go back to it. So let's go to our content page. Here, pre-assignment 1. Now, if you don't have the coloring book, the pages are here. And then you can print those out and color them. If you have the coloring book, then you don't really need that. So that's what we just looked at. This is pre-assignment 1. You're going to answer those questions, do the coloring, do your list.
And so for the color book, do we email you or do we send that through here?
No, you're going to take the pictures with your phone.
Yep.
Text it to yourself, your own email, not to me. Email it to yourself, and then you're going to go in and take those pictures and copy them and paste them into this document.
Okay, perfect. I'm awful with technology, so that helps a lot.
Okay, so that's what you're going to do. And then when it's time to turn it in, you're going to go to the assignment Dropbox. And here, this one is due August the 29th, right? So that's before midnight on Monday, and you go in here and submit it.
Okay.
So that's the first one that's due. And we'll look at the schedule at the very end, and you have that on the syllabus so you'll always know when something is due. Okay? Are we together on that one?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions about that? Okay. We already talked about the course's structure for repetition. The next thing is the presentation. So you're going to have, each student is going to be assigned a case study, and I'm going to assign those after Labor Day. At the first week of class, students are still adding and dropping, and I want to make sure all the students who are going to be in the class are in the class, and so I'll assign it after Labor Day. So you'll get a case study. And let me think of, okay, let's just say we had a patient that went in to the doctor, and this patient is 74 years old. This patient you'll get patient history. She has a history of high blood pressure. She doesn't take her medicine like she's supposed to. She smoked for 30 years. She did quit smoking. She has had minor heart attacks or small heart attacks, that kind of stuff. And so she's going into the doctor because lately she's been really tired. She's been struggling to breathe, just walking from, the house to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. It seems like she's walked a mile. She comes into the doctor. She might have, some swelling or whatever. So she goes into the doctor, and this is what the case is. So the case is going to tell you who the patient is, what their symptoms are, and then the doctor is going to maybe run some tests or give some medication and so on and so forth. So you're going to have to research that a little bit. If the doctor is running tests, well, what do these tests normally, what are they normally run for? If they're given medication, what are these medications for? So you're going to figure out what the deal is with this patient. I'm less concerned about you getting the diagnosis absolutely correct, but I want you to work through the process. Okay, so first you're going to give the normal anatomy and physiology. That particular thing I'm talking about will be assigned for the heart. So then, which would be a 153 topic. So you will give me the normal anatomy and physiology of the heart. And in this case, I've already worked through this, and I'm guessing that the patient has heart failure. So I need to talk about how the valves work, and I need to talk about how the ventricles work, right? And so I will give an overview of the normal anatomy and physiology, and then I will focus on the ventricles, because with heart failure, those are what stop working efficiently. Okay, so I don't want a long, drawn-out intro. I want enough for my audience, your classmates, to understand what I'm going to be talking about for normal. Then I will give a summary of what's going on with the patient, and then how the symptoms that they are presenting differ from what we would see normally, right? So under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have that labored breathing and all that kind of stuff and tiring easily, because your ventricles will be getting blood out to your body like it's supposed to. So this is why we have the difference. I need some visuals. Give me some pictures of what the normal heart looks like. Give me some pictures of what that heart and heart failure would look like. There are visuals. And then compare to the normal. Discuss how those symptoms relate to the condition. So with left-sided heart failure, for example, fluid builds up in the lungs, and so that's why the patient would have a hard time breathing, and they wouldn't be getting oxygenated blood out to the body like they're supposed to, and that's why they feel tired. And so those symptoms will connect with the condition. You want to explain that here. Give me an overall conclusion. You need 2 references. Now, I don't give you a set number of slides that you need to post, and I will have a discussion area for posting this. You want to just make sure you're telling this story in a logical flow here. The paper is the same way. There'll be a drop box for the paper. That won't be for everybody to see. That'll just be coming to me. The paper is only 2 pages. No more than 2.5 pages. Okay. So the paper is the same flow. It's an overview of this whole thing. Okay. And it's double spaced, 12-point font, Times New Roman, normal margins. Okay. You need a cover page and you need a reference page. You only need 2 references. Those are literature sources. Meaning, even though we find stuff online now, it's somewhere in print. Somebody has checked to make sure this information is legitimate. You cannot use web pages. There are no checks and balances for web pages. I'm Dr. Burns at Delta College, and I can make a web page about dinosaurs. I know jack about dinosaurs, but somebody would think it's legitimate, right? Because nobody is checking my web page for accuracy or facts. Because it's my webpage. I can put whatever I want to put on it, right? So that's why you can't use that, not even WebMD. But you might find some images on there that you want to use, and that's fine. So you need 2 literature sources. Well, you got to talk about normal anatomy and physiology, so you could probably use your textbook for the first one. There may be some book out there about cardiac conditions or heart problems, or maybe a book on heart failure. It might be a journal article, whatever, for your second source. Okay. So then you'll post that in the discussion area when it's due. I'll show you when they'll be due. And then the only time you have to use the discussion board to comment would be after that. You're going to comment on the some of the other students, just a handful of the other students' presentations. Okay. Either comment or ask a question. That's the only time you have to do that. And we'll get to that due date in a second. Any questions about that? Okay. We already talked about cheating. Don't do it. Right? Paper return. Obviously, we won't have tangible papers in our hand, but assignment returns. So the pre-assignments, I don't grade the pre-assignments for correctness. I think I may have said that. I grade them for completeness. The more you put into them, the more they benefit you. So if you do all the parts, you get all the points for them. The only time I will circle something that's wrong if it is absolutely not related to that question, like when in 153, there's a question in the respiratory chapter about the 4 steps in respiration. Well, what happens is my students will answer that question using Google and start telling me about glycolysis and the Krebs cycle and all of that kind of stuff. And that's cellular respiration, not respiration for the lungs. Okay. And so then I'll circle that and say, that's not the answer to this question. That's not what I was looking for. I don't mark off for it, but I'll let you know that's not what I was looking for this question. Okay. So those a couple days, I try to make those a couple day turnaround. Like I said, the quizzes and the exams are auto graded, and I will go back and check for anything that may have been marked wrong that should not have been. The only other thing is the lab assignments. It'll take me some time to grade those because I got to make sure I'm grading everything else. So the lab assignments and the presentations, it'll be a few days or even maybe a couple weeks turnaround time. But of course, everything will be graded and you'll get those scores well in advance of the end of the semester. Are we together? Any questions? Okay, so now we're at the, that's not what I wanted to do. Got to change my tool. We're at the schedule here. So I try to stick as closely to the schedule as possible. We're not on campus, so we don't have to worry about any weather incidents when we get to November or December. Hopefully, no snow in October. We've had snowstorms before in October. I just don't even want to think about it. So we don't have scheduled times that we meet, but we have weeks, right? And so what to do that week? What are we doing this week? So here, Monday, our first pre-assignment is due. That's that first chapter. Okay, and then I will post the lecture after that, right? And then the next Wednesday, we'll have a quiz, and the next Friday, we'll have a test. This first exam for my 152 class is pretty lightweight. It just has chapter 1. There's not a whole lot to that. It's introducing the language of anatomy, defining anatomy and physiology, defining some of the terms, and showing you what some of these areas are that we'll be talking about for the rest of the semester. That's why this one goes pretty quickly. But if you look later, we got more time in between. So this is a week and this is a week, and then we're down to the third week before we have a quiz and an exam here. So I try to stretch that out according to where we need more time to study. And I have more time to put a review in as well. So you'll see the schedule. I don't foresee any reason why we won't stick to it. So your case studies will be due October 15th. Again, I'm going to assign them after Labor Day. So you'll have just a month and a week or a month and 2 weeks to get those done. And you can ask me any questions along the way if you're doing them. They're not extensive. It won't take a whole lot. It's just a matter of carving out the time to get those PowerPoints in and type up a short paper for them. Okay, but you got to October the 15th after they're assigned to do that. Okay. So don't forget, if you have any questions, you can always email me and ask me your questions.